Humanity has a long history, and it comes as no surprise that in all that time, stories of the strange and unusual have integrated themselves into folklore. Join us today, walking the late-night streets of Dunstable town, as we tell stories from the shadows. This building behind me is the Nag's Head, and it is one of the oldest buildings of Dunstable, and at current is a pub for locals and visitors to spend an evening chatting, drinking and eating. It didn't used to be a pub though. Back in the year 1667, it was the home of the Settle family. Our first story of tonight tells of their unfortunate interaction with one of the two most notorious witches of Dunstable.
Cold was the night they first met her, the woman Elizabeth Pratt. For that is what she seemed to be at first, a simple woman seeking food and a warm place to rest for the night. The Settle family, led by Patriarch Josiah Settle, permitted her entry, and the group sat around the fireplace as dusk drew on. Elizabeth approached the family hound, who lay by the fire enjoying its warmth. She leaned down and stroked its head.
"You're my boy. You're my boy. You're my boy."
That is what she said. Thinking nothing of it, the group turned in for the night. Come morning, the hound lay dead, still laying by the fireplace. Though sad and a tad strange, the dog was old and the family thought nothing more of it, and with thanks, Elizabeth left. Several nights later, she returned once again with the same request. Once again, they accepted, allowing her entry, though requested she remain in the room with the fireplace. As the family turned in for bed, right before the children left, she stroked the eldest's, John's, head.
"You're my boy. You're my boy. You're my boy."
That is what she said. Unsettled, yet still with no proof of any danger, all went to bed. Nothing did happen that night. With a thanks, Elizabeth once again left come morning. It wasn't until 3 days later, when as dusk drew near, John cried out,
"Murder! Murder! I am bewitched!"
Shortly after, the eldest Settle son died, leaving Josiah Jr. as the sole Settle son. The family, distraught from the tragedy, turned many a guest away. Though polite, a sombre distrust fell on those who had previously sought sanctuary. Alas, it wasn't over. As dusk approached on one day, a familiar figure appeared at their doorstep. Elizabeth was once again back, requesting food and a place to rest. She was told in no uncertain terms that her presence was far from wanted and to leave. She turned with a dark expression, and they shut the door. That night, as the family slept in their beds, the scream of little Josiah Jr. awoke them with a start. Charging to his room, they found the window open and the figure of Elizabeth looming over their only remaining child, whispering as she stroked his head.
"You're my boy. You're my boy. You're my boy."
And that is what she said.
While historical records confirm that both children of the Settle family died shortly after interacting with one Elizabeth Pratt, and the stroking and repeated phrases are present in said records, it is unclear how or why the boys passed. It is recorded that the elder of the sons, John, had time to scratch her with a needle to see if she would bleed. She reportedly didn't, fulfilling local superstition that witches couldn't bleed. Mrs. Pratt was reported to be a rather extravagant woman, with many strange public relations, and even admitted to be conversing with the devil. Arrested for witchcraft, she never got the chance to stand trial, dying in prison. Having just crossed West Street, we are now walking along the middle row of Ashton Square. As you can see, this shared space is lined with shops and cafes. Of course, these buildings are older than the businesses that presently reside in these plots. Moving on to the next story of the night, we tell the two main tales this street has to offer. one of a sadistic bloody butcher to my right, and the other a group of ghostly children with a sweet tooth to my left.
When I was young, my dad took me on the ghost walks based at the local priory tea rooms. These are two of the stories I remember them telling us. Centuries ago, around the 1700s, there was a butcher shop where the middle row is today. The man who ran the shop had an affinity for profound cruelty. Many butchers would ensure the meat delivered was slaughtered on the farm, then butchering the cadaver at the shop. That wasn't something he allowed. No, he ensured that his stock was delivered live, so he could savour the killing blow. One fateful day, part of the stock delivery was an aggressive male boar. Somehow, the boar escaped its cage. Although annoyed at the interruption, the butcher grabbed his cleaver, intending on dispatching the beast. He chased it round and round the shop until they found each other face to face. Butcher plunged weapon into beast. Beast gored tusk into butcher. Although the boar was the first fall, the butcher wasn't long to follow. Some argue that both combatants were beasts, and it is said the ghost battle of the butcher and the beast can be seen to this day on a dark night. The other story I remember being told was a more modern one. Around 2006, when the cake house shop was on the other side of the middle row, they noticed the gradual disappearance of certain stock, sugar. It wasn't overly noticeable, and initially they just assumed it was pests. Though inspection after inspection, they just found no sign of anything of the sort, yet the sugar continued to disappear. One evening, as an employee was closing up, they heard the sound of children's whispered voices. Assuming they were coming from outside, as it was the middle of summer and still light with many people about, they thought nothing of it. Another employee and several members of the public reported seeing faces of transparent children peeking out of the top floor windows. Those who worked the property knew that at the time, those floors were vacant. As a test one evening, an employee left a small plate of sugar on one of the countertops by the stairs before locking up and leaving. While opening in the morning, they found much of the sugar gone, with small, childlike fingerprints in what little sugar remained.
As you can likely tell, this pair of stories are most based on hearsay and witness accounts. There are no official records of these events in life or death. However, it is a popular tale told on the town guide ghost walks that are throughout the year, and enjoyed by residents and visitors alike. It's clear this town holds its folklore in high regard, revelling in the mystery that the paranormal brings. Now, this path is Church Walk, colloquially known as the Corpse Trail, from its use of transporting bodies to the Priory Church's graveyard. As you can likely imagine, a place in so much contact with death is incredibly haunted. However, the third story of today is that of what happened to man's best friend along this walkway.
People were few in Dunstable when this tale took place. Many had perished several years prior in the Second World War. The men who the good Lord saw fit to bring home were not quite the same as they left. Many became insular, some became violent, while the one we're going to speak on today found companionship in an unlikely place. A large black dog who accompanied him on many outings. The pair would travel the many roads and paths of Dunstable, were well acquainted with the locals, and became a generally approachable pair. Unbeknownst to them, that was all about to change. One late night, the pair took their usual turn down Church Walk towards the Priory. As they continued along the path, the dog charged ahead, as he usually did. As the man caught up with him, he noticed his companion's distress. His fur had begun to bristle as he stood bare in his teeth. A low growl resonated from deep in the dog's chest, indicating a perceived threat, and yet the pair were all alone in the alley. This growling continued as the man began to check on the dog, who refused to move. All of a sudden, the dog let out a loud yelp and turned back, running out the alley the way that he'd just come. The screeching of tyres and the beep of a horn was sounded, and as the owner ran to the edge of the alley, he was devastated by what he saw. His companion, the friend who had helped him feel normal again, lay dead in the road. The driver of the car had stopped, just not in time for the spooked dog who had ran into the road. It is said that the ghost of this dog can be seen roaming the main road, along with Priory Gardens, accompanying lone travellers of the night. No one had ever determined what had spooked the dog, though everyone can agree whatever it was caused the death of him.
As you can see around me, the graveyard is very old and very full. The Priory is the heart of most folklore of Dunstable, and mainly as it was one of the town's very first buildings. Long ago, Dunstable simply existed as the Icknield Way constructed by the Neolithic people of Dunstable, who also constructed the 5 knolls found on Dunstable Downs. It wasn't until 44 AD where the Romans built the Roman road known now as Watling Street, and the crossroad town was born. The Priory Church of St. Peter was constructed in 1131, along with the Hospitium or guest house, now as Priory House. The most well-known Dunstable folktale comes from this location, that of a violent witchwoman known simply as Sally. Now, this tale comes from a poem that has been lost on multiple occasions, and there is no record of Sally actually existing. However, the poem may have been a critique on the reverend of the local parish church in the year 1875, that of a prideful and vindictive Reverend Frederick Hose. His negligence led to the church becoming dilapidated, and a local schoolmaster wrote the poem, which the children would chant around the reverend.
At first, she just told fortunes, and was quite harmless, but as age did creep upon her, with bad spirits she did play. She acquired a black cat for company, that taught her the black arts that she used against her neighbours or anyone who offended her. Sickness in children and cattle, mysterious fires were all blamed on the witch. Eventually it became too much, and the people went to the prior calling for Sally to be tried for witchcraft, and if guilty, to be burnt or boiled or fried. The enterprising prior, though, sold them charms to ward off the evil eye, but when Sally counteracted them with more black magic, he was eventually forced to bow to public opinion. At the trial, it was a foregone conclusion that she was guilty, and to be burnt alive directly with her pussy and her stick, and her soul, though church doth banish, to the kingdom of Old Nick. Preparations were made in the square, with the prior having his chair placed outside the priory gateway for a grandstand view. In fact, the whole event turned into a holiday, with the mayor and councillors as guests of honour, and the shops closing early at 3. Sally was brought forth and put upon the pile, and the noise of people shouting, I am sure, was heard a mile. As the flames burnt around her, the crowd suddenly fell silent, as Sally, waving her stick, uttered a frightening curse. Where my ashes sink today, never any child shall play, for the earth that's under me till doomsday shall be heated be. For good measure, she also planned to haunt the priory and be a general nuisance to the prior and the monks. Right on cue, when she had finished her curse, a terrible storm raged with thunder, lightning and hail, which forced everyone to go home. When the men returned to clear the site, although everything was soaking wet, they found the stones still red hot, just as Sally had predicted. Out they could not put the burning, cold they could not make the stones, and no one, for love or money, would go near to move the bones. Back at the church, the prior was cursing old Sally with holy water and prayers, when suddenly the big bell in the steeple began to toll. The priests fell to their knees, as they knew no living person was ringing it. When it stopped, Sally's ghost was seen to glide right up to the prior's side. She then set about him, sending him sprawling, and followed up by attacking the monks, singeing the prayer books, and letting out a long, loud, satanic laugh. For months, Sally plagued the priory, and as the stones in the square were still red hot, a fence was erected so children would not play there and get burnt. The story of the curse soon spread far and wide, but nothing and no one could exorcise the spirit until one night in dark December, when the priory gate was locked. After nightfall came a stranger, and for entrance gently knocked. The stranger was a palmer, a pilgrim returning from the Holy Land, complete with scallop, stick, palm leaf and relics, who had come to rid them of their curse. Joyfully, He was taken to the church, and as soon as they had entered, Sally glided down from the rafters into view. But the palmer uttered some mystic words, rendering Sally powerless. Holding out the empty bottle, thundered out, "Just jump in there!" an order she dare not disobey. Once she was in the bottle, it was corked, sealed, and the palmer buried it in the churchyard with a warning. "But ere this broken be, out the wicked ghost shall flee, and shall plague you 10 times more than she ever did before." Stones were placed upon the site, and, with the spell broken, the area on the square soon cooled down. A deep well was dug for the witch's bones, and a pump with a fence around it was erected on top. But of course, over the years the exact burial place of the bottle was forgotten, and as the residents of Dunstable were afraid of disturbing it, the state of the churchyard became a local scandal. Thus the churchyard goes to ruin, graves and fences getting worse, everyone devoutly wishing not to free the bottled curse.
This poem still can be found in the Priory House Heritage Centre to my right. It was significant for its criticism of the prior at the time, again calling out the at the time reverend. The schoolmaster was subsequently fired from his position, a board decision which definitely had nothing to do with the Reverend Hose, who only happened to be a high-ranking member of the board. It's recorded that his pride was greatly hurt by the poem, which was lost on several occasions over history, finally found and secured in 2002. As we walk the original path of the Old Ignorant Way, we finish off the night with our final story. Catherine Ferrers was the lady of the Markyate Cell. Being left alone much of the time in the large house with servants, and having a family constantly riding waves of wealth and financial ruin, she turned to being a highwaywoman. So notorious, so violent, ruthlessly killing any and all she came across, regardless of if they would resist or not. In 1660, she was fatally shot, her horse returning her to the cells, where she died on the steps. How does this impact Dunstable, though? Well, she would frequently use the roads of Dunstable, riding her faithful black horse with white flashes on its forelegs. It is said, on foggy nights, the sounds of footsteps can be heard, and rarer still, the ghost of her and her horse can be seen as they trot along the high street.